we're live. Hello again, and another great session, courtesy of IndieReCon. It's my very great pleasure. I was just telling our next speaker I've wanted to meet her for a long time, so it's been really nice to meet her here at IndieReCon. It's Penny Sansevieri. Tell me if I'm pronouncing that properly. Is an author herself. She's written 14 books and she knows a lot about publishing books and particularly about reaching readers. She's a super marketeer. She teaches lectures in the topic, and of course she runs Author Marketing Experts. I'm just looking down to make sure I get that name right too, which is renowned really for making a difference in terms of selling books and getting them out there and reaching readers. And tonight's presentation from Penny is called Welcome, Penny.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do. Really excited to be here. So sort of take you through it that way. But I'm watching a Twitter stream, so if you have questions, hashtag on Twitter. I choose with.
And while you're doing that, I'll just explain. So our Twitter hashtag is IndieReCon, hashtag IndieReCon, and Penny will be taking questions there during the session and answering them afterwards. And she has a fabulous presentation lined up for you. And as it is now after midnight in London, I'll head over to Twitter at the end to answer any questions you may have. So I know this is going to be a knockout presentation. It'll be one of the first things I do when I get free tomorrow will be to look at it. So best of luck, Penny, and enjoy, everyone.
You can see my screen.
Your screen is there and you're ready to rock.
To present the session. Now, my full screen going so that you guys can see the presentation. So I don't have Twitter. I don't have actually live, but I'm going to grab my phone and follow it on the hashtag. So if I don't right away, I will, because I know last 30 seconds, 22 new tweets. You guys have a active Twitter feed. This is the found. So this is the Amazon checklist, which I will post in Twitter. So you can follow this link and get the checklist, which goes with this presentation. So how this program was created is that we tested this with an unknown author and using a fiction book, and we tested this over months. Part of the reason I mention this now is because it's important to know that this is a very the results from this work based on some very results. So fiction, first off, which has typically been more difficult to promote. A lot of authors will say, I write fiction and I know that's really hard to market. And fiction is not as difficult as it used to be. Actually, it's quite a bit easier. Part of the reason is because of ebooks and bundling and things that I will show you in this presentation. But also know that because having somebody who isn't known also helps to kind of level the playing field. Make this a much more even test. We also did this testing in excess of 12 months. It's actually now going on about 2 years. So regardless of if you are traditionally published or published, and I realize that we're mostly with independent authors, but I just want to make sure and make this clear, it doesn't really matter. A book is a book is a book. And understanding how Amazon operates is the core piece of this presentation. And the first step in that is looking at Amazon as Google. So when it comes to understanding things like keywords, things like categories, publishing consistently, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. All of these things help increase your ranking on Amazon. Just like, you know, if you're trying to get more visibility for your book, for your website in Google, you're probably going to use keywords on your homepage, maybe keywords in your blog posts. You're going to publish a lot of different blog posts. Those are all the kinds of things that help you to gain more visibility for your website. And the same is true for Amazon. So the principles are really similar. In fact, SEO Moz, which is a very geek type of site did a blog about Amazon and ranking on Amazon, and they said that if you're an author, you really don't care about ranking on Google, you really want to focus on Amazon, which I think is the heart of what we're doing here today, and one of the most important things that I think you should walk away from with this presentation. So let's first talk about the numbers, because the numbers are really staggering, and also this particular slide is not accurate. It's not accurate in that there are new books published every single day, as you can see from these numbers. And that 3,500 number is actually closer to 4,500. And here's why. Third bullet point, which says ebooks are hard to track, is absolutely true. So ebooks are hard to track. Some authors will go straight to ebooks, so they get what's called an ASIN number, which is the number that Amazon assigns the book, different from SBN number, which is something that the industry uses. Amazon says that there are 4 million books on their website. I don't know that this number is actually, because when you consider how many books are published every day, you know, let's go back to that number 4,500, 90% of these on. So, however, even with these kinds of numbers, you can still gain a lot of visibility for your book using these tools. Old versus new, it does not matter. So whether you have an older book or you have a newer book, I've done these on books that are as old as 5 years and done really well. And by programs, what I mean is you know, the keywords, the categories, those types of things, and kind of played around with the algorithms. If you have a new book, obviously this is the first thing that you want to do, one of the many first things that you want to do. But if you have an older book, this is a really great way to get more exposure for it. So let's talk a little bit about how algorithms work. Categories and reviews. Those are three of the main focuses of the Amazon the Amazon algorithms. Categories, in that what category you're picking for your book, search term, which are the keywords, which I'll talk about in a second, and then book reviews, and we'll go through all three of those during this presentation. So the first is keywords, which I love this site. Our SEO guy is actually in the UK, and he's fantastic. Several years ago, he told me about ubersuggest.org, which is a fun, very interesting way to find great keywords. And I'll show you a screenshot of it, because it's not the most attractive site in the world, but what Ubersuggest does is it scrapes Google every single day to tell you what people are searching on in your market. So I typed in the word book marketing, and then I come up, and I don't know if you can see this. I don't know how the slide is showing up on your end, but basically it takes book marketing from A through Z. So everything that people have searched on in the last 24 hours under the term book marketing. And this will give you a really good idea of how people are searching. This is also a great cheat sheet for blog topics. So if you've ever been sitting in front of your blog thinking, oh, what am I going to write about? You can pop in your keyword into, and you will be able to kind of, it'll give you suggestions based on what people have been searching on. So popular things like that. The thing that I want to make sure that that I explain is that when the term keyword is actually not accurate. People do not search, consumers do not search based on one singular keyword. They search based on, so for example, if you can read this, one of them says promotion plan. You would, if you're marketing your book, you're probably not going to just go into Google and type in, because a whole bunch of random searches will probably come up. Everything from book marketing companies to book marketing books. I'm going to type in something that's much more focused. So book marketing for ebooks, or book marketing, you know, as it says here, book marketing and promotion plan and things like that. Amazon works the exact same way. So this is a screenshot from when I was trying to title my book, How to Sell Books by the Truckload. People say they really love that title. And it's interesting because I didn't sort of dream up that title. What I did is went in here and did this search and found what popular topics. So you'll see under the search bar, it says Kindle Store. So you really want to stay focused in the Kindle Store because it's better there than looking at books in general. You can do them on both sides, certainly, of the Amazon site. And by sides, I mean that the Kindle Store and the print books are actually two separate sides on the Amazon site. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. But the selling books, it pops down this sort of intuitive, here's what people have searched in the last 24 hours or 12 hours, however Amazon ranks this. And this is very similar to what happens when you go into Google and you pop in a search term. It starts to give you results of what people have searched on. So I'm seeing top selling books on Amazon, selling books on Kindle, and selling books online. Start to coming up with keywords that I can use in my book description and in the back end of my book. And I'll show you up in a second. Now, the other thing that I'm going to show you too is that you also want to be, so you don't want to just grab all these search terms and run with these, because even though they're coming up in Amazon, which means that people are searching on them, it may not necessarily mean that people are actually buying in this category. So there might be certain search terms that are more prone to, let's say, shopping than other search terms, and I'll show you how to differentiate that in just a second. So the other way to search is by typing in your keyword and A or B or C or whatever you can go to. The reason for that is that because a lot of people search based on the genre and something. So let's say I want to find a book on social media, and I'm running a business. I don't want to figure out how to use Twitter. Go into Amazon and type in the term business and social media, or business and social media for beginners. It's really going to kind of depend. Do this search, and I used the example of romance because this is the genre that we actually researched to put both the presentation and the book together. And the reason that I picked romance is because it's so cluttered, right? So when I type in romance and I don't even have, or the fifth letter of the alphabet, and you're already seeing that it's popping up some, quite a few search results. And I just pop out of this really our slideshow, and questions coming up. No questions so far. All right, guys, just like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to just pop those in there or pop them in the Twitter feed. So romance and babies, romance and suspense, romance and mystery, romance and sports. So these are all popular searches that are popping up in Amazon. And again, you're going to want to play around with this a little bit. The one thing about Amazon keywords is that there isn't an exact science. So I can't tell you, oh my gosh, if you do romance and babies, you're going to start selling, 1,000. It varies, and keywords can, depending on the market that you're in, keywords can change based on changes in the industry. So for fiction, you're probably not going to have this problem, but for nonfiction, your keywords could change periodically. Probably not all the time, unless you've written about something that's very newsy. And tied to something that's trending right now, you're probably not going to have to change these keywords a lot, but you are going to want to play around with them. And I promise you that if you pick the right keywords, you will start to see a spike, an upward spike, which is what we all want. But if you pick the wrong ones, and I've done that when I've been testing this, you could see your book drop like a rock. Now, here's the thing. You don't go and the book drops, my life is going to be over. Change it. And when I've done that and I've gone back in and changed those keywords, the book spikes again. So it's just a momentary glitch, but it's a good way to, just so you know, you can't break Amazon. You can't break this. You can, but you are going to have to go through and test it. So let me give you an example of something that I know for a fact is really popular, and that's romance and military. So there was a huge trend last year. I was at Romance Writers of America, and for romance and Navy SEALs. And so when I went into Amazon and I typed in romance and military, I thought, let me see what pops up, because I know this category is popular. But I also want to see what the sales rank is on these books, because even though it's popular, you know, there's a difference between everybody thinking it's popular versus what sells. It doesn't necessarily, sometimes I find that people think, oh my gosh, this and that is such a popular genre. And then I'm looking at Amazon at the sales rank and I'm thinking, well, maybe they're popular, but they're not really selling. Maybe they're popular to write, but they're not really selling. So you just want to make sure that whatever you're using is getting, you know, sufficient sales rank, so that so that you're making, you know, some reasonable sales. And we'll talk in a minute about what quote unquote sufficient sales rank is. So when you look at romance and military, the first 3 books on this page are really not great. The covers are not great, and they don't even look like romance books, right? So what happened in this case is these authors were keyword stuffing their titles, and I think probably also their subtitles, which is not, I imagine that Amazon has probably pulled these titles by now, but I want to share this with you because when you go into Amazon and you go into the Kindle store and you type in your keywords, I want you to see what comes up, because this is the next figuring out whether those keywords are going to have some legs to them, right? So if you were to do this search and you were to check these first, the sales rank on those first 3 books is huge. In fact, I think the first one was something like 1 million. So what that tells me is that they're getting great sales, they're getting great ranking on the Amazon site. They're ranking #1 in romance and military because they've keyword stuffed their title. But their books aren't selling because readers are not stupid, right? So so in the case like this, what you want to do is you want to go down, further down the page. And when I do that, I'm looking at books that I think, oh my gosh, these now look like romances. And each one of these, and we're going to look at one in just a second, but each one of these has a really good sales rank. So Seals of Winter, let's say, and I think this is like a 20-box set or something, a number of different authors. The sales rank, if you look under product details, the sales rank is 246, which is really great. And I realize the book is also priced at 99 cents, and we'll talk about price in a little bit. But, you know, take a look. It's #9 in military. It's #9 in suspense. It's really doing very, very well. So this would probably be, you know, this is probably a search term that you want. The other thing that you want to look for, and I'm going to slide back here just a couple of slides. At the top of this, and again, I realize this is on Google Hangout, so it may be pixelated, but when you do a search in Amazon, it will tell you that this is showing you 1 of 16, so 1 of 16, you know, 1 through 16 books out of X number of search results. Now, generally, I like to try and keep those search results under 10,000, because if it gets over 10,000, it can be unwieldy. 1 through 16, and on this page for romance and military, when you consider that there are more than 4 million books, bad number, so that's a pretty reasonable number. So just be aware of how many other books are coming up under that particular search, because it's much easier to compete in a more narrow search term. And the thing about searches on Amazon is that the more that you can be in that top 10, the better the more attention to pay to your book. And by attention, so algorithms, by definition, are, it's this mathematical, you get ranked. And Google, the definition of algorithms has always been sort of associated with Google. But Amazon uses similar metrics. And by getting higher search results, Amazon will help push your book in certain ways. Yes, you want to come up high in searches because you'll make more sales, but once you trigger the Amazon algorithms, Amazon has, this internal system that will start to spin your book more frequently in front of readers. And let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So if you've ever read an ebook, which I'm sure most, end of the ebook, whether you're on a Kindle reader or an app, it'll read, bought these titles, or however that's worked, right? That is what I call the promised land. So that's a great place for your book to be. And as you start to spike in sales on Amazon, your book will start to come up in that area more frequently. The same is true for the band that runs along the, right under the book title, the also bots. That's another place that Amazon, whether you wind up on that first screen or you have to cycle through 3 or 4 screens to find your book, that's another way that Amazon can help to push your book. The email newsletters, yes, to some degree, but keep in mind that the Amazon email newsletters are very much based on your personal searches. So a lot of times authors will tell me that they've searched their book and all of a sudden Amazon is sending them an email to buy their book. Well, that's based on your searches. That's not like the pinnacle of all of your work and all of a sudden Amazon's mentioned you in their newsletter. But there are other newsletters that Amazon does outside of that, which are based on your personal preferences, that your book could wind up in. So those are just some ways that Amazon will help you, and this doesn't cost you anything. And Amazon wants to sell books, so if your book is selling, they want to push that. They want to get that in front of readers because Amazon wants to make money. So now this is a little bit. This is slightly. There's a little bit of debate on this next slide. So search string, under 1,000 per search string, and I just mentioned to you that 5,300 is good. The problem that I have with this, and a lot of people will tell you to stay under 1,000 search string, is that with 4,500 books published every single day in this market, that's hard to do. So I would try out the keywords, see how well it does. Again, as long as it's not, way over 10,000. 5,000, I actually like 5,000 a lot. So 5,000, 5,500 and under. And also a high volume of sales. Now, 10,000 sales rank is going to kind of depend, again, on the market that you're in. So if you've written in a very cluttered market, so if you've written in contemporary romance, if you have written in dating and dieting, your sales rank is going to look vastly different. The other thing about sales rank that I think is a little is that when I have researched books that have identical sales ranks but are sitting in different genres, so let's say a business book versus a mystery thriller, the sales rank can be identical, but the sales are still very different. So in Amazon, they're very cone of silence about their sales rank, but I feel very strongly that sales rank varies greatly depending on the genre that you're in. When we look at books that have a 20,000 sales rank, 20,000, 25,000, something like that, that's considered the top 1% of Amazon. So just kind of keep that in mind, that you don't have to be, the top 10 or the top 200 on Amazon to really get, to get their attention, to get Amazon's attention. All right. So where to use keywords: title, subtitle, book description, and the back end of Amazon. So the title of your book, the subtitle, the book description, which I'll show you in just a second, and the back end. Now, with regards to the title, if you've already titled your book, then you don't want to. Then obviously you're not going to want to change that. But if you haven't, if you've written nonfiction and you haven't figured out what you're going to name your book yet, then you can absolutely do that. And for the subtitle, you can definitely use this in the subtitle. And I'm going to go over and check on Twitter because I think we may have some. I can hear you. Okay, no, we don't. All right, so then the subtitle, which is something a little bit unique about books, have a subtitle. And if you've written a nonfiction book, you can oftentimes add a subtitle to the book if it doesn't already have one. So, for example, How to Sell Books by the Truckload on Amazon doesn't have a subtitle. I could conceivably add a subtitle to that in the back end of the Amazon system using the keywords. Be careful not to keyword stuff like some of those other books that you saw. And you also may want to email Amazon through Amazon Author Central. So you can get there by going to authorcentral.amazon.com and email them and just tell them, you know what, look, my book doesn't have a subtitle. I'd like to include the following subtitle. Is that okay? And the only reason I mention that is because Amazon sometimes will change their terms of service. So you just want to make sure that you aren't getting your book pulled off of Amazon. So if you don't have a subtitle, you can certainly add one using your keywords in a way that doesn't look forced, and it will help with your search ranking. Book description, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, and the Amazon dashboard. So let's first look at the Amazon dashboard. So if you have your book, this is a snapshot of a KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. For those of you who haven't published yet, and you know you're thinking about going to KDP, this is actually there's a big long screen, so you can upload your book cover, your book interior, things like that, and if you've already been on this page, you know that you can pick your categories here, which we'll talk about in just a second, and also add your keywords. So under search keywords, up to 7, optional, you can put in all of your keyword strings. Now, the reason I highlighted the word optional is because a lot of people take that at face value. They think that they don't necessarily need keywords. In fact, when I researched 10 of these in order to presentation, I found that 8 of them did not have keywords in the back end. So this is really important. And again, keyword strings. So think about keyword strings. When I talk about swapping keywords, this is where you're going to do it. And for the most part, depending on how you publish the platforms out there, but depending on how you publish, the Amazon the Amazon system may vary. So this is what the KDP looks like. I don't know what all of the other ones look like because I don't have access to all those different publishing platforms, meaning like going through CreateSpace or, whatever other, BookLocker or whatever the companies out there. But if you only have access to your ebook, so let's say hypothetically that you published your book out there and you don't have access to those keywords, and the only keywords that you can change are the ones that are associated with your ebook. You can go into the Amazon dashboard and change these keywords, and it will also help to spike sales on your. It'll also help to spike the sales on your print book because the 2 books are connected through Amazon. Okay. Now, in your book description, so with a nonfiction book, I added my keywords in the subject line, the subject line, I'm thinking of an email. I added my keywords in the headline, I added it in the second, the second line on that page, and then I sprinkled them sort of throughout. So for a nonfiction book, that's what I recommend. For fiction, it gets to be a little trickier because obviously it's hard to use all of your keywords, to describe this book if you're sort of, if you're a snippet, if you're sharing an elevator pitch, or if you're sharing, a small segment of the story. But you would use the keywords sometimes to describe reviews. So sometimes if we're putting together book descriptions for authors that we work with, we will use, so let's say an author got a review from USA Today or US News or whatever. We might use romance and mystery or mystery thriller or something as a descriptor. So, for USA Today on contemporary romance or something like that. So a lot of times we'll use those keywords as a descriptor. It takes not as easy for fiction, but it is definitely doable. Okay, so I recommend repeating keywords, and you can also, like I said, you can swap them out. You can play around with them a little bit. When you start doing the keyword research, I want you to search 15 keyword strings. The reason that I say 15 is because the Amazon dashboard lets you have 7, and if you have 15, you can swap them out. You can play around with them a little bit. You can also use more in your book description. And the other thing about book descriptions that I want to mention is that if you upload your book through KDP, they give you 15, I think it's 1,200 words in your keywords, your book description. And 1,200 word book description sounds really long and probably a little obnoxious, but if you go through Author Central and you change your book description at the back end of Author Central, which you absolutely can do, it will lock your book description into 400 words, and it's really, really hard to get it changed back to 1,200. Now, here's why you want to stay with 1,200, because you want to be able to add enhancements to your book description on Amazon, such as, such as book reviews, endorsements, things like that that you can use to dress up the page. And you'll do that. And I believe within the checklist, there's some the checklist that I sent around earlier on Twitter. There's some coding in there so that you can enhance your book description, just like I've done here with the Amazon Orange and the black and the bullet points and things like that. So you can do that for your for your reviews. You can add those at the top of the of the book description. You can bold them. So let's talk about Amazon categories. So narrow categories are best, as are obviously narrow keyword searches. Getting to the top triggers promotion. The promotion is what I talked about earlier. And themes is another version of category, but themes right now is for fiction authors. And Amazon is going to roll this out into nonfiction, they've told me, but it hasn't happened yet. And I'll show you what themes looks like in a minute. The reason I mentioned themes is because Amazon used to have very deep dive categories within fiction, and they don't anymore. You used to be able to go down very, very far down a particular category and find something that was super narrow. Now you're allowed to have per book. So, you're going to pick from a big, broad category, and then you're going to do a deep dive and try to get as narrow as you can. You can still do that for nonfiction, but for fiction, they've changed that. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So this link to this page is everything that is in Amazon on their print. And I'm going to show you the ebook side in just a second. But these are all of the categories. And this actually goes, this actually goes further down too. Let me just go back here to this. This actually goes way further down on the page. So but you can click through here and you can see, if you click on, for example, children's books, it'll take you further down this, down the categories rabbit hole, so you can find what's appropriate to your market that's fairly narrow. Now, if you have an ebook, which I'm assuming most of you do, you definitely want to do this search on the Kindle side of the store. So Amazon is actually divided up into two sites. It's the print book side and the Kindle Store side. And here's the really interesting thing. Categories, the book categories, and each of these two sides of the Amazon store are vastly different. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The other thing that you know is when you are searching categories and you want to replace those categories on your book data back end of Amazon, they are not going to show up. So what I showed you that earlier with that KDP dashboard screenshot where you can pick your two categories. Those are what's called BRST categories, which are industry standard. Bookstores use them. But Amazon, of course, bucking the system, they do use those for uploading your book, but within the Amazon system, these categories are just all over the place. So they have they have hundreds and hundreds of spin-off categories based on the original BRST categories that are industry defined. If you find new categories for your book, which hopefully you will, what you have to do is you have to get them changed through Amazon Author Central. So you have to go through Author Central in order to get your categories changed. Because if you try to go into the back end of Amazon, find them because they're so different. So what I recommend that you do is find the categories, take the link, copy the link from the Amazon and ask them to change your, move your book into these two categories. And they'll do it actually probably within 24 hours or very, very quick. So let's take a look at the Kindle Store. What you do is you go to Amazon.com, highlight Kindle Store, you can see that in the search bar, and then you're going to click Go. Now this drops you down, as I mentioned, to a whole different side of the Amazon site. On the left-hand side under Kindle Store, you see it says devices, accessories, blogs, and ebooks. You're going to click on ebooks, which will then take you again to another drop-down where you can pick from fiction or non. For this example, I wanted to use business because business tends to be super cluttered. And I want to kind of show you what I mean about narrow fiction not being used or utilized. There is a category on, and you can see the yellow arrow, and again, I realize you may not be able to see this depending on how you're viewing it, but some of these categories are so narrow, or there are so few titles that it's actually a little scary. So, there's one for, I think, outsourcing, which has 257 other titles in it. There's a category which only has 1,500 titles in it, which I find to be so interesting considering how many books are in each of those markets. Now take a look at this. So under business and money and business life, there is a category called work-life balance, which is very popular, but there are no books in this category, 132. So if you dig around on Amazon, you can find some really golden places for you to be. And I want to show you business life etiquette only has 921 other books in it. You can see that yellow arrow. Women in business, follow the yellow arrow, 740 books. Now that's a really surprising number considering how many are about women in business. And the other ones, management and leadership has 45,000, marketing and sales has 25,000. Women in business that only has 740. You can get very creative. Your book, you have a book that is, for business owners. Your book doesn't have to necessarily be, hey, this book is for women in business. If your book is for business owners, I would try putting it in that category as well, because you could get some. So let's take a look at themes. Is what the screenshot that I'm going to share with you now. But themes for fiction really vary depending on, obviously, the market that you're writing in. So zombie fiction and mystery thriller have different themes. But the themes are the new categories. I know this is a little complicated, and it was for me too when I first discovered this. But the themes are the new categories. So what you want to do is you want to pick one or more from each of these segments. So you have under romance, we have romantic themes, beaches, gambling, international, love triangle, etc. And then we have romantic heroes. So cowboys, Highlanders, pirates, things like that. When I called Amazon and I asked them why they were doing this, they said that they did find that consumers were in effect searching based on these particular themes. So they were searching on romance and firefighter or something along those lines. So why Amazon made these changes, and they have not yet rolled out in nonfiction, but they will. So we'll show you where to find what those might be. So this is a very awkward looking screenshot, I know, but I wanted to share this with you. If you have a Kindle Direct Publishing account, you can go into the marketing tab and it'll share with you the keywords associated with the various categories. Now, on Amazon's page, they call them themes, but here they clearly refer to them as categories. So in order to get into X particular category, you have to have those keywords in your Amazon dashboard, so in your back end. But I would also recommend that you put those keywords, sprinkle them within your Amazon copy as well, because that will help you. Also. So you can categories. I've had some categories that have just done awful, and then I've had others that just do really, really well. Sometimes you don't know until you actually test it. And again, you want to find a narrow category, narrow market within two broad categories. So I just want to share with you Author Central. If you have not yet sort of pimped out your Author Central page, you may want to, because there are there's a lot that's going to be happening, I think, with Author Central. And I don't know this for a fact, but Amazon bought Goodreads, and I think at some point they're going to start to fold whatever bio that you have on Author Central into your Goodreads account, and vice versa. So it may not be a bad idea to get in there now and do some fun stuff with it. You can also go in and see who has reviewed your book. I will go in there and oftentimes thank the reviewers via this system. So just add a comment and thank them for the review. Amazon just also added favorite authors, so you can click favorite if you want to know when this author is publishing again, and Amazon will notify you. And you can upload your videos and your Twitter feed and your blog and things like that. So you can do a lot within the Amazon page, and I recommend that you do that, because this Amazon page follows you from book to book. Now the other thing, and I know we need to open it up for questions, and I just want to check the Twitter stream. Let me go back to Twitter and see if you guys are chatting. See what's coming up over there. Yay, 27 new tweets. What are good children's book keywords for Amazon? I don't know. I would actually have to research that. But it would also depend, Juju, the good voodoo, if you want to tell me a little bit more about what your market is. And I see you asked that twice, so thank you so much. And thank you. That's a very sweet comment. Okay, and it looks like how to sell a bazillion books. Love it. All right. So it looks like we have questions on. Doesn't look there's any questions. Asking them, guys, because I'm here and I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have. And thank you for that comment that I look good in pink. I love the color. I'm currently actually sitting here with my extremely awesome dog on my lap. So maybe if we go back to questions, I'll pop that back over so y'all can see him. All right, back to the presentation. Short is the new long, and by that I mean that a lot of books that are shorter are actually doing better. And by short, let me define that. I would say 20,000 words is typically the sweet spot. Now, why I mention this in context of the Amazon optimization class is because one of the best things that you can do with Amazon is to own the shelf. So own the shelf with having lots of books out there that you are that you're selling. And again, they don't have to be long, 20,000 words. And I want to show you something too, because on this page, so if you can see, this is the book that we actually tested, by the way. I neglected to mention that earlier. This is actually 2 books. So she has 5 books on her shelf. This is actually 2 books, because what we did is we bundled them, and like Climax, which was the second book in the series, is books, and Shelf Life and The Publicist, which was the first book, was broken up into 2 books, and then it's bundled again. So you can do a lot even with your existing books. And here's an idea, guys. If you have an older title, I met an author at a really awesome writers conference, and he wrote an almost 400-page book on a science fiction fantasy. And he said, I published it a few years ago. It didn't really do great. I'm getting ready to publish my next book. He goes, is there anything that I can do to revive an old book? And I said, why don't you take this book, chop it up into 2 or 3 pieces, and re-release it on Amazon as an ebook? So it helps you to virtually own the shelf, which means that just like if you were to walk into a Barnes & Noble or whatever local bookstore that you have, and if you go to, let's say, the mystery section, the business section, and every single book or half of the books that are on those shelves are by you, what do you think you're up walking away with? Probably one of your books. So that's kind of the thought process behind owning the shelf or owning a narrow market. market. So publishing exclusively to that niche, which is one thing that I don't recommend authors are flipping around in various niches. Because I talked to an author a couple of weeks ago and he goes, I want to write in every genre. And I said, I think that's great because I'm not that creative. Like I can write contemporary romance years ago. Here's a little secret. I used to write 100 years ago. Please don't buy the books. They're really awful. But I used to write romance novels and back in I think 1989 or something like that. But if I did that now, I think it would be really confusing. Well, does she write nonfiction or does she write romance novels? But what he wanted was fiction and romance, and it's really hard to brand one author to a whole bunch of different genres. So just kind of be mindful of that. If you aspire to writing across a whole bunch of different genres, I think that's awesome that you're that creative. But you may want to, and sort of own a genre first and then, then sort of branch out. So those of you probably very familiar with the bundle. So this is kind of what the bundle looks like. Now here's an interesting thing about this cover. So kind of racy cover, cha-cha going on the cover with these two characters. When I released this when I first released this book, we were sort of helping the author kind of select a cover, and we went with something that was a little less sort of serious. And when we released the first book, which is essentially the bundle with this, it did really, really well. So, covers are really important. And sometimes what I'll do also is I'll actually play around with covers because you can get covers for, so I'll play around and sometimes, and I don't design covers. So when I say play around, I mean with the designer because I could never design a book cover. But sometimes what I'll do is I will, maybe see about redesigning a cover and then trying to see if, maybe it helps to spike or hit the market. And this is my How to Sell by the Truckload. This is the prior version, but this is the bundle that we did for that book. So you can have 3 or 4 books. In fact, I'm teaching a class this week and it's an online class. Actually, it's just in a forum. And one of the gals asked me, she says, can I bundle with other authors? And I said, sure, you absolutely can. So if you have, in fact, this is something that I think is actually going to be a trend. If you have 4 or 5 other authors that, you are in the same genre, you could definitely bundle your book with them. So if we were in a room, nope, that went a little bit too fast. If we were in a room, I would ask by a show of hands, how many of you want to get more reviews? And 80 to 90% of the hands usually go up because we'd all like more love for our book. So let me talk to you about free, how I used free to get more reviews for the same book that I showed you, the screen grab that I showed you earlier. So I offered the book 2 days for free and got 61,000 downloads for the book, which is a great number. And the author got in excess of 200 letters from readers. And the book reviews, I think, are currently at 260 or something. But we started at 20. And actually, I think it was more like 19. So one of the things that we did is we really also focused on building superfans. And why does this matter in context of the Amazon optimization class? Because superfans can help you get more reviews on Amazon. And when people say to me, how do you manage to get over 100 reviews on Amazon? And I say, you know what, you really want to go out to the fans. One of the things that we did is I actually wrote this letter. So I wrote this letter for the author because I wanted it to be non-salesy. And I wanted it to be really sort of, look, we appreciate you. You're the reader. We love you. We would really like, if you have the time, to review the book on Amazon. And what I did is I put this in the back of the Mobi file. I put this in the ebook. And it's also in the back of the print. But frankly, it does better in ebook anyway. And I put this in the back of the, the ebook file with live links. So there's a link to write the author, there's a link to go to the website, and then there's a link to review. And basically what I did is I said, reviews are really tough and really appreciate if you would review the book. And this is the letter that got this book from 19 reviews to 200 during this free promo. And this was actually within 2 days. Now those 200 letters from readers, that was also encouraged by this letter. What I did is I had the author write back to each and every single one of, just to start to build her superfans, because I will tell you that in an age where there are 4,500 books published every day in this country, getting reviews is going to be a real challenge for many of us. And I believe that your best focus not only should be on bloggers, of course, because bloggers are awesome, but these folks are really busy. Bloggers are so busy, and you can't depend just on bloggers to get reviews. So start building your super fans. Let me tell you what else happened with these super fans, and I want to take you through the pre-order that we did for this book, and it was really pretty staggering. So we were equally testing this. We were equally testing both the other book and this book. This was the next book in the series, and once we did the whole superfan thing and got the letters from readers, which started at 200 and I think went up to in excess of 300, things like that. So it was a pretty amazing, you know, amount of people that actually wrote to this author. Then what we did is I said, okay, look, I want the next book to go on pre-order on Amazon. Now, I wouldn't recommend the pre-order for a brand new author because it's harder to drive interest to a brand new author. But I would recommend the pre-order for, you know, if you have one book out or more books out. So we did the pre-order for a very short period of time, so only 3 weeks, because I don't want, you know, you technically you can't review the book on Amazon if it's a pre-order unless there's a print copy associated with it, which is a little bit of a workaround. But you don't want to spend a whole ton of time promoting a pre-order book. So during the 3 weeks, there was no promotion. There was no promotion during the 3 weeks. But we did let the readers know, so the super fans. The book did 1,000 in pre-order, 1,000 books in pre-order for a book that was not being promoted, an author that doesn't really have a lot in the way of social media. So this was not a book that we were putting a huge amount of muscle behind for the pre-order. Then it was launched on December 15th, and I intentionally picked that date to do the pre-order because if you're not marketing your book, that's probably the worst day that you can launch a book is right, you know, 10 days before Christmas. And in the first 2 weeks of the after the book went off of pre-order, it did another 1,500. And a lot of that was friends telling friends and people telling, you know, and all that. Now, what we also did is we sent a letter out to the fans and we said, look, we love you. If you pre-ordered the book on Amazon and when you get it, you know, you're going to get it on December 15th. If you're one of the first 50 to review the book on Amazon, good or bad, we don't care if it's good or bad. Well, you do care, but you can't really say, hey, I only want 5-star reviews. We will give you a free tote bag. So it was a tote bag that was, you know, based on the book, and we did it through Zazzle, which was a really fun place to do, you know, customized stuff, and wound up with well over 50 reviews in the first few days of the launch of that book because readers just read it right away. So there's a lot that you can do with the pre-order. If you don't know how to set it up, there's a screen in the back end of your KDP that will, you know, that'll walk you through it. The thing that you want to know is you want to make sure that you're hitting your release date, because if you don't, your book will go live with whatever file that you send to Amazon, which for most of us, you know, Amazon requires that you send them a file for the book so that they can list it on their site. The file doesn't have to be your final. You have to upload your final, I think it's 10 days before your pre-order date. And if you don't, then they will make live whatever file that you sent them, which for most of us is probably a Word doc. But again, you know, have a platform, limit your promotion. I wouldn't focus too heavily on promoting a pre-order. You really want to save all your muscle for when the book is actually out. But you can do a shorter pre-order and really sort of ignite some reviews. So I want to talk to you briefly about Kindle Unlimited, and then I'm going to let you all go, because for those of you who are in other countries, it's probably very late or very, very early. Kindle Unlimited is a really, really great resource, and I know it's gotten a lot of really bad press, but I want to share some ideas with you that I feel can make Kindle Unlimited work. So if you're not familiar with Kindle Unlimited, how it works is that if you have, you know, if you're in KDP Select, you're automatically in Kindle Unlimited, and if somebody quote unquote is a gets a subscription, because Kindle Unlimited is their book subscription service. So if somebody grabs your book and reads 10% of it, you get paid. So you don't get paid until the reader reads 10%. However, one of the things that I found with Kindle Unlimited is you do not want to put all your books into Kindle Unlimited. And it's not that you're going to make so much less money, but you will make more money if people actually buy the book. Okay. The other thing is that you can use Kindle Unlimited to help you. You can use Kindle Unlimited to help spark sales to your other books. So just as an example, I have 14 books out on Amazon and various editions. So, like Red Hot Internet Publicity is in, 3 different editions and things like that. So what I do is I will take a shorter book, so 20,000 word marketing book or something, and I will put that in Kindle Unlimited, and every single book that I have has titles. So what I do is I will, I'll put a shorter book in Kindle Unlimited and drive interest to all of my other books. So we have an author, she's a doctor, and she writes on menopause, and she taught supplements and all kinds of stuff. That's sort of her focus. So I said to her, I said, okay, so you have this main book that's coming out, but you also have a lot of content that you've written. Why not put that into a book, 20,000 words, and put that into the KDP Select system so that it automatically goes to Kindle Unlimited, so you're getting all of this Kindle Unlimited exposure via people who are subscribers. That will help to drive more attention back to your book. So you have to use Kindle Unlimited smartly. Don't put all your books into that system. I will rotate books in and out of KDP Select, which rotates them in and out of Kindle Unlimited. So just some things to kind of keep in mind: keywords, categories, and using, as I mentioned, short is the new long. So putting more books into the system. Putting a letter in the back of your book to get readers to contact you. Don't put the letter in the front of your book, put it in the back. And and just really using the Amazon system to maximize your success. So with that, I'm just going to pop over to IndieReCon and see if there are any questions. It doesn't seem like there are, but I will. Oh, okay, so somebody asked, how do I know what to start typing in Amazon? If I put in wilderness thriller, how to, which ones do I pick? Well, that's really going to depend. So I would start typing in wilderness thriller into Amazon and start, and kind of sort of see what comes up. It's going to depend, SR, on whether your what your book is about. So without knowing specifically what your book's about, I mean, I would recommend going over to the Uber Suggest link, which I shared in the beginning of the presentation, and take a look at what people are searching on and let that kind of be your guide for Amazon. And I hope that's helpful. If it's not, feel free to tweet out again, because I will check this. I will check this a little bit later too, and I will also post the link. I will also post the link for the checklist that I mentioned. Sorry, I couldn't find my words. So I think that we are at the end of our session. I thank you so much for attending. There were no additional questions, but again, IndieReCon hashtag, feel free to use that. Pop up your questions, and I will be sure and answer. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Penny Sansevieri with Author Marketing Experts, and it's been a pleasure to present this for you. Bye-bye.